I'm Rebecca, and I'm doing a book talk on A Separate Peace by John Knowles for my high school ELA class. The genre of this book is naturalism. Naturalism is a philosophical viewpoint where everything happens from natural causes and supernatural experiences are discounted. It is a fairly short book, counting at 236 pages, and it was published in 1959. I borrowed this copy from my teacher, but you can also get it in libraries, and it can be bought on Amazon. The back of this book reads, Jean was a lonely, introverted intellectual. Phineas was a handsome, taunting, daredevil athlete. What happened between them at school one summer during the early years of World War II is the subject of A Separate Peace. This captivating story takes place in the most memorable summer of Gene Forrester's teenagehood that happens 15 years before he starts to narrate the story. Gene narrates the story as himself at 16 years old, and it is set in an all-boys school called Devon Academy in New Hampshire. Since this takes place in the summer of 1942, World War II is a huge aspect of the story. It seems like a normal memory from the reminiscent adult before Gene's world is turned completely upside down. When an accident happens to his best friend Finney, and no one knows who's really responsible, it really twists the story. There are feelings of anger, guilt, regret, sadness, envy, and so much more. It's hard to believe that it only took 236 pages to get it all down. This is a unique and interesting, emotional roller coaster ride, with many events that leave the reader wondering. The main characters are Gene Forrester, an introverted intellectual, and Phineas, or Finney, a smooth-talking, extraordinary athlete who happens to be Gene's roommate and best friend. Elwyn Lepellier, or Leper, a shy boy with an interest in snails and skiing, and a good friend of Gene's. And Brinker Hadley, another good friend of Gene's, who is a leader in the school with a fairly aggressive attitude. I found these characters hard to like, especially since main characters are usually very, very lovable or very, very hated. These characters were neither of those things. Gene was an interesting person to read about, especially since he found himself constantly wondering what his relationship was with Finney, the war, and just about everything else. I found Gene to be odd, and I can't find myself getting attached to him, but I still wanted to read more about his story. Finney is an exciting element to Gene's somewhat normal summer, though I couldn't tell if I liked him either. He seems unable to face the truth about anything that is too difficult, the war, his accident, and of course, his relationship with Gene. Finney is funny, outgoing, creative, and just a little too cocky, but sometimes that makes for a perfect character. I found Leper to be uninteresting at first, but as the story went on, I found myself getting more and more interested in his character development. He was peculiar, but I liked his shyness and his odd choice of activities. Though as his character developed further, I didn't like the crazy aspect the author added to him. The character development of him was very obvious, and even though it doesn't change Leper for the better, I still liked his character in the end. I think Brinker was simply rude and very pushy, though I couldn't say that I hated him. I wasn't a huge fan of his aggressive take on life, and how he seemed to replace Finney as Gene's best friend for a while after the accident. It was hard to tell who was the antagonist in the story, or if any of these boys really were the antagonists, because they all had such relationships with each other. The main aspect of the story, besides the war, was the relationship between Gene and Finney. Both of the boys were so unlike each other, and they both seemed so unhappy in their friendship at times. It gets especially complicated when the two of them are on the ledge of a branch of a tree together, and Finney falls and breaks his leg, as well as his athletic career. But the question is, was the fall Gene's fault? And if it was it subconscious? The air of competitiveness between them is overwhelming at times. I've never seen a more complicated relationship in my life, and I'm still not sure what to make of it. It's part of the fun, though, not quite knowing who's innocent and who is, and trying to find your own perspective on things, since the characters never really give you the truth outright. Finney never wants to believe that Gene would do anything to hurt him, and I think he might genuinely care about Gene a little. But he's also very upset that he can't do the things he planned to. Gene tries to be honest about what he thinks and how the accident happened, but Finney never wants to hear it, and he never wants to face the truth if he finds it difficult. One passage that I liked can be found on page 45, and it's from Jean's perspective. I found it. I found a single sustaining thought. The thought was, you and Phineas are even already. You are even an enmity. You are both coldly driving ahead for yourselves alone. You did hate him for breaking that school swimming record, but so what? He hated you for getting an A in every course but one last term. You would have had an A in that one except for him. Except for him. This really shows the competitiveness in their relationship and Jean's actual thoughts on his relationship with Finney. It can also interest the reader a bit to see where their relationship goes in the end. If I was to give a rating to this book, out of 5 stars, I would give it a 2. I'm not usually one to dislike books, but I found this book difficult for me to become interested in personally. I don't think I could quite understand all the points of the story either, and I felt as though someone with a deeper understanding would enjoy this book more. The characters have a very convincing and real personalities, and I think that was part of the reason why I couldn't like them, because even though they were unique, they were still just normal boys. They were realistic, and their characters were never exaggerated, and I could see why people would like this as they read. This book had very good word choice, and it was well written. I just couldn't find myself getting interested in it, because I generally like fantasy books and books like that. Thank you for watching my book talk.